Wascavage.
No, it's Wascavage.
Okay, it's like wet cabbage. Yeah, well, we're big fans of the Suburban Sasquatch. We have questions. We need to know what's going on.
All right, I promise to tell you everything I can, but I won't reveal some secrets.
Well, good evening, weirdos, and welcome to the next episode of Living Cruddy with Cruddy Joe. I am, of course, Cruddy Joe, and I'm here with your friends, the Giddy Along Gang. We have handsome Jimmy Hansen and the full bug, Gino Roy Coffinberry, the brains behind everything Cruddy Joe. And our special guest tonight is a director, an actor, a writer, a producer, does costumes, and he does whatever the hell additional crew is. The man, I had to write this down on the list because the man does freaking everything. Is there anything you don't do behind or in front of the camera? Dave Wascavage. Wascavage, depending on who you ask.
Wascavage.
Wascavage. How are you, sir? Thank you for being here.
Fabulous. Thank you all for having me on the call tonight.
We should remind people that Dave is the creator of one of the Film Freakout's favorite films, The Suburban Sasquatch.
Yeah, before we begin, I wanted to extend gratitude from one Chris Stevens, #1 Suburban Sasquatch fan. He says, thank you so much for that movie. He wants more, and he wants the director's cut on Criterion. ASAP.
I heard him. He did say that. All right. Well, this ridiculous winter hat, I can't hear anything.
I would want one. I feel like it would keep me nice and warm.
Oh, yeah. It's like a inferno in here right now. I was freezing 10 minutes ago. The Suburban Sasquatch. How did we stumble across that? Joe found it and played it for us one night on the...
Yeah, I think like everyone else, I first heard of it through Red Letter Media. Where are you right now, Dave? I'm assuming you're in the United States.
Yeah, I'm in a bunker, actually, just due to concerns about radiation and fallout. No, I'm just kidding now. Right outside the Philadelphia area, actually. So we don't have a complete winter, but we do have some snow on the ground.
So it's colder there than it is here, I assume.
Vinny lives out in Enola, so we do have one representative close to him.
Love Nashville. Visited there last year for the Pink concert. It was fabulous. Love the town. Great feel to it. Nice drive. Great area.
It was great before COVID. That was just another place that you hear about.
Right now, we're #1 hotspot in the world.
Because of you.
More than London?
They may have beat us by now.
Yeah, London's got that new strain out there. They're rabid. They're running around. They only have like 28 days later till they die or something.
Right, yeah.
Our governor decided that when they shipped out the vaccines that it would be better not to give them to anybody and stored them instead of actually divvying them up. And subsequently, our friend Jimmy here ended up coming down with the COVID because of the governor.
Oh, no. How has your recovery been?
I had a fever for a couple days. I had a headache for 2 days. Then I gave it to my whole family. They loved it.
Is it true about the erectile dysfunction? You already just had that anyway.
I had that going in, so.
Jimmy Nipples is already getting beat down. We haven't even been 5 minutes.
I deserve it.
Instagram dubbed him Jimmy Nipples with a subtitle malfunction. But the irony is that we're talking to the guy who created the Sasquatch with the giantest pancake nipples that we've ever seen. And I know that's a weird starting off point, but you got to let us know
nipples
behind that.
You got to love those nipples. That's like the least obvious anatomical feature on the creature. I mean, come on.
He was poking people's eyeballs out with those things. And you designed the costume.
Yeah, I actually had a production designer, Sarah Schneider. I had her help me design the costume because my sewing skills are like my directing skills are pretty much non-existent. But I wanted to have somebody to come in to give me a different perspective. You know, not being familiar, I can sew. You know, I can put some things together. But I basically went to her with the elements and I said, just help me construct this thing. Make sure I've got the right idea in mind. Also, let's specifically address those nipples. That was not an intentional designed feature. I mean, the creature was male. So what I got was this plastic body armor from this prop shop and just happened to have these huge nipples. Honestly, in constructing it, I never thought twice about it. I was more focused on other areas to be accentuated more.
So they were actually accidental nipples then?
Yeah, accidentally super huge. And I never looked at it and thought, wow, these things are really going to show up like dinner plates or, you know, they'll get like radar dishes that are radiating signals out to Mars. You know, just happenstance. So to me, it's in the background. They do crack easily, though, but that's just probably from repeated licking, I guess.
Joe served up that movie that night, and I saw the first few seconds of it. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is one of these movies. And then after paying attention and the sounds and the whole thing, I'm like, okay, I gotta watch this thing through. You know, I was laughing my ass off the whole time, but I mean, there was definitely some thought that went into it. There's some lore gore obviously built into this story. It's not just random stuff happening. It's not just Bigfoot. He's able to disappear into some other dimension. He's got the nipples. He's got these very unusual sounds. You don't need to see the movie again to know if you hear that again, you know that's the Suburban Sasquatch. I was wondering how you came up with his gurgling and his roaring.
So I think there's a few points to unpack here and address. I think you guys might be interested to hear. When I was writing the film, from a creative aspect, I had never seen a Bigfoot movie that saw him as more than just a creature that scared you because you were in the woods already. You feared he existed, and if he showed up somewhere, then he would rapidly disappear. I mean, the most aggressive historically that we'd heard has been, him throwing rocks at this cabin out, in one of the areas where he was generally seen in California. And since that always freaked me out, I thought, man, I'd really love to explore this, put some accurate mythology, at least as we have stories handed down to us, tie that together with something that hasn't been seen before, like maybe like a female heroine who's maybe Native American, like who would be tied to the lore, but somehow bring that into the modern age and roll that together. On the flip side, so to address the sounds, one of the things in my research is someone has recorded, or at least what they had said recorded, was the sound of Bigfoot, and it was this haunting long echo, and you could tell it was a human because it echoed in the forest, had this fantastic decaying reverb as the sound had traveled between trees. It was just really spine-tingling. I thought, man, I'd love to imitate that. So of course, as I'm editing, I'm like, man, I got to get this thing done. You're juggling a million things. I'm like, what happens if I growled into a microphone and tried to cut some of the low and high bypass filters and adjust the speed and whatnot? And what actually happened was the sound wasn't bad. And I thought, well, I'll just use this as a placeholder. Well, by the 10th edit, I just gotten used to the sound, and I thought, man, I don't think I want to hear anything else. It kind of feels right. It feels good, and I'll leave it in place. But that means from an editing perspective, you lose the ability to say, well, critically, does this help or hurt the product? Maybe I shouldn't keep that sound, but it felt right to me. Even if I didn't know what the end product was going to look like, I liked it, and I thought, I'll just leave it as is. And now it's got this kitschy little feeling to it, this like a little, but it really was just me, a microphone, and some adjusting of the sound.
Well, whatever it was that you did beyond that, it's not an offensive sound. The frequencies are pleasing. They're not offensive. They're not a screeching, shrill bit of that to it. That's part of why I think you probably liked it initially and why it resonates with people that watch it. It has to be because it is a kind of a unique, pleasing sound. You want to hear him make that sound more as the movie goes on.
Being far too kind and courteous. The right thing probably would have been to do is hire a sound engineer, or what's available now, go out, farm out the work on the internet, say for $50, can you make this better? And someone can make it better. But funny enough, people see things differently. I know I was going around YouTube the other day, and I had maybe a few weeks ago, I saw someone had made a 5-hour loop of nothing but the Bigfoot growl. I thought that was absolutely brilliant, 5 hours of hearing him growl like that.
We'll have to intercut it with Paul Stanley jibber jabbering between songs. I definitely would have thought it would be a lesser product without that particular sound. The sound of it is a huge part of it. As always, people don't count how much value there is to scores or sounds or things, whether it's a pleasing sound or whether it's abrasive sounding. Certain movies are too strong at certain frequencies, and that came out real well. I liked it.
Thank you. As you're saying, you have to make a conscious effort to where I want the viewer's attention to be focused. So you can simply look at it as layers of a cake and say, all right, well, in this scene, I have to have a score that's action or fast. I have to have sound effects that are rich and really help surround the sound. And then I have to have the actors and the color all in focus. So I'm focused specifically on just the visuals, what's happening, not maybe what's being said or the story being moved at that point. And all that has to come to a very tight degree. So every frame when you're shooting and you're making the sound, you have to be cognizant of this, or at least as a director, that's what you're trying to do.
It's not an overwhelming amount of effects. It's enough to you can understand that there's some gore going on, but it's not the entire focus of the movie. I'm hoping that it was intentional to be a little bit humorous in that regard, because it definitely is as you watch it.
Yeah, most definitely. I got to say that. So on 2 points there. From the gore aspect, I'd seen so many films that have just moments of sheer complete gore and then nothing for some time and then some mild gore. It varies greatly. And I didn't intend to emulate that, but I noticed now looking back that it's very much like a lot of films that I really enjoyed. I could have these moments of extreme gore and then more just kind of mild or passive. My intention was never to be over the top. I didn't want that to be the focus. I think if I had some of the capability to do so, I probably would have thrown a little bit more in there. You have what you have. But on the other side, you have so many opportunities to try to make the film match this tone you're setting. I knew that I put some humorous elements that were obvious and some that were maybe a little subversive and some that you really didn't get until you see it over time. And some things just you don't intend to be be hysterical, but they may turn out to be that way. But some things I absolutely do play to the hilt, like when the hunters are attacking Bigfoot. I mean, so much footage is reused or reversed or a CG net. Like, it's just so bad, it's good. It's the zeitgeist of the moment. A lot of times I'm filming this stuff, I'm cracking up behind the camera because I'm enjoying it so much. I'm laughing. But you know what? It's not without its attempts too. There's a lot of times I'd written something and I shot it because I thought, man, I really want this to come across seriously and see what people think about this dialogue. Like, it was always intended to be something over the top, operatic, super grand, because I thought I wanted to really be out there. I didn't want anybody to be bored watching it.
Well, it's not boring. Now, I can't say when people are watching it, they're more entertained by just kind of having a laugh at how ridiculous some of the stuff is, or whether they're actually looking at the actual story and buying into it. There's enough of both to make it work. You brought up that net, and I did want to ask you about that net. Was that something that you had planned, or was that just like some, we got to fix this type of accident, or what was going on there?
Oh my God. So the scene is shot and Bigfoot's laying on the ground, and I had this cargo net from my old Ford Explorer. I'm like, oh, hell, that'll work. I'll just throw it over there. You know, the hunters obviously aren't going to have this huge enough net. You know, it's what I got, and I'll just use that. I'm not going to go spend $30 and triple the budget and buy a net. So I have Bigfoot laying on the ground there, and the net's over him. And then in post-production, I'm watching the shot. I'm like, shit, first of all, Bigfoot's pretty much as tall as one of the hunters, if not a little shorter. I'm like, damn it. Like, all these shots, his scale is off. I tried to imply that he can grow and shrink in size, which adds to his ability to camouflage himself as part of nature. So I kept interspersing that for the film, but I thought having him grow in front of the hunters would be really difficult. So I thought, well, let me first extend him digitally. So I extended his body. And then I had the problem where I had this huge ass leg and a net that only covered his torso. Let me quick whip together a 3D net, and I'll throw it over, and I'll just animate it to make it look like he's squirming underneath. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, hell, it looks fine. I'll let it go.
Good enough.
I figured there had to be some explanation for that doggone net. But now that you mentioned making him change in size and dimension back and forth, that clears up a few things. It scenes where he's, you know, just kind of like the average Bigfoot size, and then there's other time he's like practically turning into a Toho monster. And I'm watching that going, what's going on here? Now, this is somewhat of a magical Bigfoot.
I really love the idea of giving you the concept and the framework and forcing your creativity to fill in the bounds. My thought was always that in the second and third films, I would expand on that further if necessary, or at least utilize it as grounds for the next stage for what happens. So I actually wrote the 2 sequels at the time I wrote that one. And then it's so that it kind of explains the growth and at least how that's all related in the story overall.
So, okay. So you broke some news there that there already are sequels that are at least written out then.
Did you have any specific influences, or what was the impetus behind Suburban Sasquatch? Was there something that inspired you to make this movie, or maybe another Bigfoot movie like Boggy Creek or Yeti Giant of the 20th Century, Snow Beast, or Sweet Prudence and the Erotic Adventures of Bigfoot?
You're mentioning a bunch of films I have not even seen. Boggy Creek I did see, but that was in the 70s.
Correct.
But prior to shooting the film, the only major input I had was an episode of In Search Of. Enthralled by Bigfoot, it freaked me out. I mean, well into my early 20s, just being out in the woods, I'd be like, gosh, there could be this Bigfoot thing out there. And I loved it so much. The fact that it drove me to fear, I thought, you know, I would buy any movie that showed Bigfoot as this rampaging monster instead of this thing that you don't know what it's going to do, but something that showed it being this fearful thing and ties together these mythologies I read about. I thought, wow, that would be such a cool movie. Nobody had made anything like that. So I thought, well, I was able to get Fungicide completed and at least 40 people had seen it, which exceeded my goals. So one might as well move on to the next film. It was more just that no one had done it, and I'd always been fascinated, and I would buy that in a heartbeat. Plus the idea of like Bigfoot's always in the Northwest or in the woods. I thought, what if it was like actually threatening the neighborhood? So that tied the whole idea about nature, environmental impact. There's a story in here somewhere. If I could pull these elements together, I could write some narration that connects all these points.
Well, as a public service and someone who's seen a lot of Bigfoot movies, allow me to protect you by saying most Bigfoot movies are horrible. Yours is the exception.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Since then, I've seen a lot. I have a lot of Bigfoot collections, and there's good and bad to all of them. They're entertaining from a certain point of view. The funny thing is after Suburban Sasquatch, Sasquatch, in the interim years, there's been a lot of other films that have come out. It's been like more of a subject that's been more eventually like zombies, right? They were pretty much dead until, 2003 through 6, and then they came back to life. These are free jokes, guys. I'm not writing them down. They're free for you. That's pretty good.
Zombies are dead. I gotcha. Hey, I'll be making the bad jokes around here, sir.
Yeah, that's Joe's job.
You can't help but be influenced by every piece of art or music or film you see also. You can't help but instantly want to echo what you've seen. It's a challenge to break out of that and do something different, because that requires brand new thinking, brand new ways of approaching problems, brand new settings, and a new conclusion to come to, all which can be very, very challenging. And I have to say, there's a lot of times in Suburban Sasquatch, I just sat back and I'm like, hell, I'm just going to let the camera roll. I have no idea what I'm doing. Shit's just going to happen on film.
There's a scene in there, and I guess it's towards the end, and it's a guy, and I guess it's his wife, and they're just hanging out in the house, and they're listening to some punk rock or something. They don't look like the couple that would be listening to that type of music at all. The guy's just dancing around. What's going on there?
Here's the setup. Dave Weldon was the guy who was doing the dancing scene. Dave's my best buddy. I love this guy. He's a great friend. In this scene, I said, Dave, I'm going to have some music playing in the background, and here's what we're going to do. You're basically going to be dancing, and then Bigfoot's going to come up to the house, and it's going to shock the both of you. And he's like, what do you mean I'm going to be dancing? I said, it's going to have to be grooving along, like just act like you're drunk and have a beer. He's like, Dave, I'm not going to do any dancing. He begged me not to do it. So I won the coin toss somehow just to get him to do that. But as for his wife, it definitely probably visually doesn't look like they'd be man and wife. The whole setup is just to be out in the woods couple that's just like, go out and see what's going on. It's only a gag to set up for Bigfoot to be right there at the door. And that was a callback to, it was either Boggy Creek or the In Search Of episode where Bigfoot was like right outside the door window.
Yeah, that's In Search Of. I remember that. I wasn't inferring that they didn't look like a couple. It was just they didn't look like a couple that would be sitting around listening to some kind of punk rock. It was definitely like, what the hell's going on here in this scene? This is totally out of the blue.
I originally had like some techno music I put together, and by this time Fungicide was getting traction, so I had bands approaching me. Can we pay you to put our music in the film? So I had a band said, look, we just want some promotion. Can we throw something in there? So he's probably dancing out of sequence just to help another band. All right, here's your music, put it in.
Well, you could just speed up the tempo.
Like a Benny Hill skit.
That's hilarious. What's the main actor's name?
Bill Ushler, the
Bill Ushler, okay.
Reporter, yeah.
Who was in charge of his wardrobe?
Unlike Tala, Bill and everybody else was responsible for their own wardrobe. So yeah,
so he chose that unusual drab brown ringer that was like 6 sizes too large to wear throughout the entire last half of the movie.
I have to say, in defense of Bill, right, I said, wear something plain, unexciting, and can be ripped up or bloodied if necessary. If I decide to write a scene where you get like ripped or attacked.
Well, that makes sense. It looks like the kind of shirt you would pick if you knew you were going to go sleep in the woods pursued by a Sasquatch for a couple days.
High quality art. There you go.
Like, for instance, the human centipede. Was Suburban Sasquatch 100% scientifically accurate? With the big boobs and the teleportation, I'm assuming that all is real, right? It was in a movie, so it's true.
I don't even know how to answer that one. Look, the teleportation thing I was really proud of, because every single piece of footage you'd seen of Bigfoot. Now you have to take yourself back in time to 2002 or 2003, right? Up till then, there was no Sasquatch Hunters TV show or Bigfoot or multiple shows examining who this creature was. It was very sparse. So all the footage you'd have these families saying, we've got this picture of Bigfoot. And you'd watch this footage where you'd see him walking across like a little field or between two trees. Next thing you know, he's gone. A great explanation for that is, as part of his powers, he could just at will, or based on energy, disappear and reappear. Scientifically accurate? Probably not. I won't say it's impossible.
Bummer.
It hasn't been disproven.
Look, matter is a perspective. Energy is quantum-based, so it's not locked down. It's here nor there. So quantum teleportation is actually becoming an actual reality. The fact that we're physically corporeal is even in question. So Bigfoot teleport, I don't know. But then again, we're under the premise that he exists in the first place, which I don't believe so. So argument's moot.
So you don't think Bigfoot exists?
I would need extraordinary evidence to prove any kind of claim like that.
I think Dave's questioning whether he exists at this point.
I mean, I got to wait till a cigarette lighter falls out of UFO before you even consider that I'm going to be someone who's going to be believing anything like that. But it makes for a good, fascinating story. It's interesting. It's compelling.
Yes.
I'll be the first to tell you that it's on my bucket list to go to California to see the Bigfoot parade, to see some of the places he's been seen. It's fascinating. I love it. But nah, I'll pass.
It's some interesting lore. There's been some films made, I think, subsequent to yours that were actually kind of terrifying. They took that lore and pushed it to the edge and it made it something that you could really be scared of. What's that movie, Joe, where the whole thing happens in a tent?
I think it was called Baps.
Yeah, it was definitely Baps. It was not Baps.
Willow Creek.
Willow Creek, yeah. It doesn't even really matter that it's a Sasquatch. It's just being out in the woods is scary enough to scare the shit out of you.
My folks have a cabin in the woods in the Poconos. And I do remember, I think I was like 13 or 14. I woke up in the middle of the night. The windows were open. We had screens in there. There was this heavy breathing outside of the window. Now, in retrospect, it's probably a deer. But at the time, the sound is magnified to a 14-year-old. It's dark and you don't know what it is. And you pull the sheets tighter and there's nothing but this breathing. It's frightening. It's terrifying. Now, how do you capture that and translate that to a film? How do you imbue that film with that sense of fear? Clearly, Suburban Sasquatch wasn't able to do it. Someone who can do it, but it's that type of thing that drives you. It can really drive you to think about, man, like, how can I make this fearful? You're not going to make this creature come alive in that sense.
And you know, deers are notorious voyeurs.
I have no idea what that deer was looking at.
It's that peeping deer. Close the shower curtain.
I grew up in Florida, and the deal there was the skunk ape. And the lore was that you would not hear him, you would smell him first. And anytime there was a skunk, I immediately thought that that was the skunk ape. There were times, when your parents are gone or whatever, I can remember being home and smelling a skunk or maybe a cat sprayed something or whatever. I was certain that the skunk ape was out there.
These are burned into your psyche the way that you now respond to this. The sights and the smells, you can't help it. It just comes right back up. And that's the way it was for me with Bigfoot, was just to think about it, like, wow, this thing was frightening. It's not translating to the film as well as a frightening film would, but it was just so exciting for me to think I can go into that territory.
What you achieved, you definitely had some stuff that's very entertaining. And I'm hoping the subsequent screenplays or stories that you've written come to fruition. And I'm hoping one of them goes from Suburban Sasquatch to Urban Sasquatch.
I'm not going to respond to anything you're saying. I can't let anything leave.
No, not letting the cat out of the bag on any of that stuff.
Sasquatch in the hood.
I did flirt with the idea that making the sequel would be called Suburban Sasquatch 2 Urban Assault. And the cover was going to have him holding up M16s and the two bandoliers of bullets. I kind of dropped that idea because I thought that seems silly, and I'm really not known for silly, low-budget stuff. But I still like the name.
No, it's great. Watching the credits, you see the name Wascavage come up several times in the cast. Was the whole movie a family affair?
My brother was in it as a victim. He was the guy that had the auto mechanic shop. And of course, obviously, I had my parents in it. Some of these people aren't even trying to be actors, but I can grab a victim or somebody who says a few lines. It's easiest to go with that. I'll just go and get it done.
Is your family still talking to you?
To be honest, every time I bring it up to my mom, so I was saying to her, I'm like, oh yeah, I struck another deal for it. It's coming out in Blu-ray soon. And she always responds the same way. She goes, that thing, you didn't give me a chance to sing properly. I was tired. I look ridiculous. Wow. Jesus, are you kidding me? What a diva. I fired her.
Too much points. Yeah.
So the person that sang the ending bit, that was your mom then?
Oh, yeah. Like, oh, Mom, you sing in a choir. Maybe you should give it a shot. But it came time to her to sing it. She literally was napping. I'm like, Mom, wake up. Here, it's time for you to sing the song. She's like, I can't get this. I don't know. It's fine. Good enough. Let it go.
One of my concerns when we were going to talk to you, I'm like, this guy could be kind of new agey. He's got a very new agey sounding song. At the end, there's somebody singing like completely out of key with the music. That's an approach to singing, which is beyond my, what I would attempt to do. Some people do it very well. It's a very strange sounding song at the end there. I'm like, oh, this is his wife. I can't say anything about that song then because guys are going to want to reach through the screen and strangle me. Now we've established that it was your mom and you dragged her out of bed.
Yep.
She didn't want to do it.
First of all, anybody who knows me, they know none of us will get offended by anybody responding or reacting to the film. The fact that it's been around for 16 years, it keeps getting deals and doing as well as it has is just amazing to us, and we enjoy it so much. And the fact that people are laughing and enjoying it this way is no offense at all. We love it. We think it's great.
Tell your mom to sing for the credits for all the subsequent films.
I'd have to trick her into it.
Can we get her to sing a closing bit for this episode?
Are you kidding me? Not even close.
Jimmy's got some money. We have a budget.
Oh, right. The budget. Yeah, the budget.
We could budget that in.
Being featured on Red Letter Media at least help with sales and stuff?
It absolutely did. The Red Letter Media exposure came at an interesting time because the film had just gotten off of its rights distributions. It was actually at the point where it was in a lull. After Red Letter Media came up, then I had to do a lot more sales and interviews and promotions. So it was phenomenal.
So they were respectful, though, when they interacted with you directly.
Oh, gosh, yeah, no, almost everybody is. I think there's only been 1 or 2 times that people have been outright vehement about the film. Actually, like, how can you make something like this just so awful? So I get it, right? Some people don't see it the same way I do. But then again, for anybody who doesn't like it or doesn't feel like they get it in some way, shape, or form, I'll have 10 to 20 emails from people saying it's the only horror film I can watch with my 6-year-old son. Thank you for not making it gory. Thank you for not going back and re-editing it to put nudity in. Like, my response is, look, if you got entertained, I'm thrilled. Just the fact that I can give you some, relief from life, a little bit of escapism, have a little bit of fun is just fantastic. Such an enjoyment to me.
You're not concerned that the parents might have to explain those nipples to those kids?
Nipples? Jeez, what about something hanging between his legs?
Saying you're going to go back and put nudity, I'm like, how much more boobs do they need? There's boobs to the whole thing.
I don't think people wanted to see Bigfoot boobs. Look, if you got to explain to your kids what nipples are, you got a lot of work to do.
You got bigger problems.
Obviously, Suburban Sasquatch is what you're most famous, maybe infamous for, but is there anything else in your filmography you think others should check out? And more importantly, for my sake, where can we find them?
We sell our films on www.troubledmoonfilms.com. So that's our main website. It's a 2-part. We have news and updates, but we also have the primary store. We sell a lot of t-shirts. Actually, I'm really proud of this too. We have a Suburban Sasquatch coloring book where we have scenes from the film, crossword puzzles, and little activity things, statues and things like that. I mean, they've been really popular, but as far as the other films go, they're also on the website. There seems to be 3 films that have the same type of tone. Fungicide, as I mentioned before, which is the killer mushrooms, and then Zombies by Design, which is a send-up of these design shows with zombies. All the same type of feel and type of quasi-seriousness humor to them.
Is there one in particular you're more proud of?
I can't say with certainty that any one stands out, except I could say Fungicide, because it was a full-length film and a huge accomplishment. But it's so bad, you can't really think of it in terms of the film. Suburban Sasquatch, because it's a coherent story that's compelling and it's interesting, it's huge in terms of what I was able to accomplish. But there's Malevolent Ascent, which was a huge leap for me from a graphics perspective and an acting perspective. But every one of them has a standout because every one was a progression in some type of skill or desire to try something different. I'm always trying to learn something and challenge myself. So in that sense, I really can't say there's one that's the top. Each has their peak for some particular reason.
On a side note, did anyone else notice how the skunk ape sightings in Florida dropped after Gino moved to Tennessee?
You've been waiting all night to drop that bomb.
At least since we were talking about skunk ape, for sure.
It always ends up just being these 2 guys making fun of each other. Okay, so how this works. I have a couple lines from a song I'll read. You tell me the following line, the name of the song, the name of the band. In case you were totally stumped, your lifeline is Jimmy or Cruddy Joe.
Okay.
I won't tell you which one of these 2 is better at music or which one of these 2 is better at movies. The first set of lyrics are, doing that stuff that you do, messing me up with your voodoo. You drive me crazy with that. What's the next line? What's the name of the band? What's the name of the song?
Did you sing that? Because that was really kind of off. I can't believe a major record label would go for it.
Yeah, for real.
No. Everybody asked me to sing these things.
Cruddy Joe, go ahead. Help me out.
Let me read it again. Doing that stuff that you do, messing me up with your voodoo. You drive me crazy with that.
You drive me crazy and I just can't help myself.
No. You want to go with Jimmy on that one?
That boogie, oogie, 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 oogie.
Yes. What is the name of the band?
That's Ween. The Voodoo Lady song, right?
Yes.
What's
what
it called?
town are they from?
They're from Philly, right?
Of course they're from Philly. That's why I can't believe this guy didn't get that one. That's a famous Philly song.
No.
Drive me crazy with that boogie, oogie, oogie, oogie.
Oh, he's
However he
singing
says
it now.
that. So.
Make the poor man say boogie, oogie, 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 oogie.
Boogie, oogie.
I'll do.
Let's see which one of us could say boogie, oogie, oogie, oogie the best here.
Hold on. He got that one, right?
Yeah, he
Yes,
got
I
that one.
He got
The secondary
Thank you,
lifeline
Jimmy.
saved it for him.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Okay.
You got it anytime.
Okay, the next one is cover me with kisses, baby, cover me with love, roll me in designer sheets.
Oh, I thought you were propositioning me. That's what the actual thing is.
Well, I kind of was, but at the same time.
I haven't the slightest idea.
Cover me with kisses, baby, cover me with love, roll me in designer sheets.
Here I come. I don't know. Santa Claus is coming to town. I don't know.
You want to use a lifeline?
I thought I used them both up.
No, you can use them. They're unlimited.
The rules are very loose on this game.
Jimmy, we'll go to you then, since you were so good last time.
I know it's Blondie, right?
It is Blondie.
Call me.
It is Call Me.
Is it?
Cover me
It
with
is.
kisses, baby.
Okay.
Cover me with love. Roll me in designer sheets.
Then cover me in spunk.
R or something like that. I can't remember.
I'll never get enough.
Dang it.
So, okay. But that's still batting 500.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that.
We'll move on to the famous movie quote. I will read the entire quote. You just tell me the character that says it and the name of the movie. Dear Susan, 1970 has now passed into 1971. You can drift in here and never know you're gone. You can fade so far out that you don't know where you are anymore or where anything else is.
Is it the summer of 72?
No, but you could still go to your last lifeline on this.
I don't know. Guys, can you help me out on this?
The one that just disappeared.
Desperately Seeking Susan.
No. Okay, that one was Midnight Express. The character was Billy Hayes.
It was on the tip of my tongue.
The infomercial guy? Billy Hayes, the infomercial guy?
That's right. The
For
OxyClean
Billy
guy.
Hayes. I think that movie won Best Picture, didn't it? Okay, so I got a much easier one. Actually,
I got to get one of these. I
think you'll get one of these. We'll do two more of these. The next one is, oh, I love your suits. It must have been a bitch to get a 68 extra fat and size 12 dwarf.
That's awesome. Oh, let's see. All right, hold on. Let me think.
I love your suits. It must have been a bitch to get a 68 extra fat and a size 12 dwarf.
The second Austin Powers film, The Spy Who Shagged Me.
Do we have a lifeline that can help him?
Yeah, anybody can help out with this?
One more time, Gene.
Doing an Irish accent.
In an Irish accent?
Yeah. Just cuz.
Even though I'm Irish, I'll inevitably mix it up between Scottish, English, and Irish. Oh, I love your suits. It must have been a bitch to get a size 68 extra fat and a size 12 dwarf. And this movie is not Irish, Scottish, or English.
Wait, did you say in a size 12 dwarf?
Yes, size 12 dwarf.
That's I'm offended by that.
Yeah, I know McNasty is.
Okay, we'll move on from this one. That was Bandit from Smoking the Bandit, talking about Paul Williams and his father.
Oh, okay.
Big Enos and Little Enos.
That's right.
Wow, this is the 70s night. Keep going.
We're going current with this last one. That's your clue. The quote is, well, who likes the Bee Gees? This is where they came up with that fabulous, spunky song, Night Fever.
Greasy Strangler.
Did he reach out for a lifeline?
Yes, he did.
Yes.
He looked at me.
Nightcrawler?
Yes, it was the Greasy Strangler.
I didn't even know that film.
Oh,
Suburban Sasquatch guy is not familiar with the Greasy Strangler.
Yeah, you
That's
need
a
to
perfect
rectify
double
that,
feature.
sir.
it is.
All right, I'll have to go check it out then.
Don't let your mom see it.
Yeah. No. Or anyone you care about.
Okay, so what did we do? We got one out of each, so that's still pretty good. Most
not
of the
bad.
time, nobody gets anything.
That's a trip to Tahiti, so
Yes, a trip to Tahiti. You can
No
salvage all that
expenses.
and rectify all the missed answers by doing a great Werner Herzog impersonation.
You want me to do a Herzog impersonation?
Yes.
yes.
Absolutely. However, I will ask something in return.
Sure.
I need to have the subject upon which you'd like me to bestow this amazing replication of Werner.
Okay. Werner Herzog directing the sequel to Suburban Sasquatch.
That's great.
There is no way that we cannot have such a feeling such as he will bring upon the masses. For him to be here will show us exactly how we feel in life, non-existent and yet here at the same time. There we go. How was that?
That was incredible.
You made up for the missed ones, definitely.
And extra credit.
Extra credit.
That was amazing.
Yes, it was. You went right into it. You knew what you wanted to do. You took all the material and turned it into something cool.
Yeah.
There's a first time for everything, I gotta tell you.
A true artiste.
All right, now the most ridiculous portion of this.
We
Back
hadn't
in-
already crossed that line.
I know, right? I know. You were thinking we did, but no, not yet.
You remember back in the day in the 70s, they had that thing called Mad Libs, right?
Oh God, I love those.
You know, we do our own
Good.
version of that. It's called Nad Libs. Basically, we take your word types and assign them to a story that Joe has written here. And then once we have those, we read back the story to you. And it's usually pretty ridiculous.
Joe's
Are
a
you
writer,
game
so he's
for
highly
participating?
qualified.
Fabulous.
A name of a season,
Fall.
a fun activity.
Masturbating.
Awesome.
There goes my mom watching this interview.
Yeah, forget it.
A favorite cartoon.
Bugs Bunny.
Give me one
I'm
second.
telling you, the production on this podcast.
Oh, we fix it in editing.
That's what you always say.
Just throw a CG net over it, it'll work.
What's your favorite sitcom?
The Cosby Show.
Cosby. Perfect. A body part of the body.
Belly button.
A childhood toy.
Top.
A violent act.
Don't say masturbating.
How about a beating?
Beating. A plural derogatory noun.
Derogatory noun. Shitheads?
That works.
I like how easy it was looking at us for him to come up with that.
Now, Joe had written here, favorite president. Now, I would normally not go anywhere with that one, but you don't seem like the type that's going to get hung up on political stuff. Do you want to go with your favorite president or use some other one?
Well, none of these are honestly the truth. I'm just throwing stuff out at you.
All right.
I'm trying to be funny, so I'll just say Adams.
So which one?
Yeah.
The first, who was actually the second president.
That's right.
Adams West.
And your favorite Golden Girl?
Favorite Golden Girl? I guess Blanche, right?
I couldn't name one of those.
Paul Smith, wasn't that another one of them?
Yes. Okay, we have a story here. It's called David Discovers Suburban Nessie.
Great.
One hot fall day, director and suburban cryptozoologist David Wascavage decided to go to the lake and masturbate.
Sounds plausible so far.
After putting on his Bugs Bunny swimming trunks, David took a moment to enjoy the pure majesty of Lake Lakanuki, whatever the hell that says. In
Lake
the distance,
Lakanuki.
David could barely just make out a large gray hump surfacing from the water's depths. Curious about this anomaly, David grabbed his Cosby Show inner tube, an oar, and fearlessly went out to investigate. Since the lump wouldn't move, David took his oar and smacked it on the belly button. When the monster turned and looked at David, he realized with horror he had discovered a rare suburban Loch Ness monster. Since the area had been under siege by a suburban Sasquatch for years, David decided he'd bring the creature ashore, hoping they would kill each other in an epic suburban battle for the ages. On their way to the beach, Handsome Jimmy and Hugh Jackman, of course, pulled up in their pink paddle boat decked out in floral patterns and racing stripes. Once they got a look at the monster, they screamed like little bitches, turned and took off so fast they actually left flames in their wake, like Back to the Future. When they got back to shore, Suburban Sasquatch was inexplicably waiting for them.
Inexplicably.
Yeah, and this is a tongue twister, man. You're asking me to read shit I can barely say my own name. The two monsters immediately squared off, but before they could fight, Handsome Jimmy showed back up with a radio flyer wagon with Hugh Jackman in the back holding a thermonuclear warhead and a top. Apparently, this was all part of Suburban Sasquatch's diabolical plan. He grabbed the warhead, beating Hugh Jackman and Jimmy, and took off on Nessie's back. Turns out that Sasquatch is a bomb expert because once they had reached Franklin Town Square, he detonated the warhead and incinerated all those Franklin shitheads, even though it was just Franklin. David felt bad for killing all those people Jimmy had infected with COVID. To take his mind off his sorrow, David went to the nearest movie theater, stripped down to his Adams boxers, and watched Blanche movies until he was arrested for indecent exposure. The end.
That was a pretty exciting weekend. That was, yeah, I remember that.
Now we're going to move on to Jimmy's Cruddy Cuisine.
What's today? Today's like the 21st. Today's the solstice, right?
It is, and it was the convergence of a couple planets out there. Did you guys go look at that?
I know, I saw them out my window.
It's too cloudy for us. We couldn't see anything.
Yeah, we could see it pretty clearly. So it's the week of Christmas, so I'm making, every year we do cookie extravaganza where we make like 500 cookies in 2 days. And then we drop them off to all the neighbors. So that's what I'm doing today, tomorrow, the next day.
So this is your secondary plan to infect everybody with COVID.
Well, now that I'm immune, I can deliver cookies to people.
Up to this point, I had been basically begging Jimmy to make me some cookies.
Christmas.
I didn't have any until today.
And now you're taking them to everybody else, except the one person.
Well, I'll
that
bring
was
you
like,
some cookies too, Gene.
Jimmy, please make. Well, you got the COVID. Can't have that shit.
I don't have the COVID.
You got the residual
I have
COVID.
huge immunity now. I don't have the COVID.
Well, there's a new strain. You may have that too.
I'll try not to get any of that in the cookies. But I'm making chocolate cookies and shortbread cookies and raspberry thumbprints and cutouts and some kind of peanut butter shit and some brickle drop, and that'd be great. I'll bring you a plate.
Peanut butter shit. That sounds really good.
You're gonna love it.
Tops on my list.
Yeah, butterscotch Sasquatch nipple cookies.
Ooh, I didn't think of that. That's a good one. Be like this big.
I do have to call Jimmy out on on this. We had agreed that we were going to try to get everybody together and watch this movie last night. And Jimmy pulled his little prank where he appears and then just disappears like 5 minutes after.
Well, all right, hold on. In my defense, I didn't know you were going to show that last week's podcast with the film director of Things, which was, I can't watch. I could hardly sit through, first of all, sitting through the interview the first time was terrifying. Then watching it again last Friday, I had PTSD. Then last night, I tried to tune in to watch the Sasquatch movie, and you're showing that in advance, and I almost blew a gasket.
If the third member of the three-man team had any idea how this show worked, he would know that we always precede the movie by watching that week's podcast.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is I started watching the Barry Gillis thing, and I fell and hit my head from my PTSD, and I didn't wake up till Suburban Sasquatch was over.
You're ready for a rematch with the movie then?
Yes, and he needs to make those nipple cookies. And I did want to add that the Barry episode was actually good. Barry was much more entertaining than I had anticipated, and he actually loved that episode and his little doodad at the end there. I wasn't sure how he was going to take it because he was an insane Canadian, but...
yeah. Cookie Extravaganza 2020.
We'll follow up on that in the next episode to find out how they were. I do want to add that McNasty is working up a bit. We're hoping that ends up in this week's segment.
I'm McNasty. Why is Halloween better than Christmas?
Why is Halloween better than Christmas? All of those terrible, terrible Hallmark Christmas movies that we're bombarded with every fucking year. Name one of those movies that's better than any horror movie ever. I'll wait. Yeah, you can't come up with one, can you? No, you can't. It's because they all suck. They're horrible. Halloween forever. Fuck Christmas. You got a question for me? Message us on the page. See ya.
Do you have anything that you want to promote before we let you go?
TroubleMoonFilms.com. Going forward, being able to shoot a sequel, whether it succeeds or fails, doesn't matter. The whole fact is that it's a journey and you get to enjoy the process. And then hopefully out of it, you get to have some things like this, like you folks being able to be on the receiving end of it and enjoy talking about it as well. So thank you for this.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we just got the cat out of the bag that actually something is happening.
Spoiler alert.
I have props I'm making downstairs right now as we speak.
All I got to say is that you definitely cannot modify the nipples out of the original costume.
Yeah.
Sasquatch will be back.
All right.
That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil anything. But otherwise, no, the costume will be there. It'll be back.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I did notice on your website that you have little figures of the Suburban Sasquatch that you're selling now that say "roar."
What do they say again?
What's the say, Gene?
It says "roar."
Does the arm make a sound too?
So one thing I got to say is the statues are selling great, and I probably should elaborate, show a picture, but the stand that the Sasquatch goes in actually has footprints in it. Troubled Moon Films.
Troubled Moon Films. If he's not going to promote it, I want to say I demand all of you go check out Dave's website at Troubled Moon Films and support that man. He's an inspired filmmaker with a big vision. We'll expect nothing but the best in the future, and you need to support him. Go right now to Troubled Moon Films and support this man. Cruddy Joe demands it.
Thank you.
Now they've been told Cruddy Joe has gone off.
Right. Your website's going to crash. It's going to be just flooded. And that's all we got this evening, weirdos. I want to thank the Getty Along gang, both Gino Royd Coffinberry and Jimmy Royd Hansenberry. And most importantly, I want to thank our special guest, Dave Wascavage, for his time and insight into the epic opus, Suburban Sasquatch. Thank you so much, Dave. It's been awesome talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time. It was a great night.
Okay, Werner Herzog directing the sequel to Suburban Sasquatch.
There is no way that we cannot have such a feeling such as he will bring upon the masses. For him to be here will show us exactly how we feel in life. Non-existent, and yet here at the same time.
I will kill you and your family and everyone associated with you.